Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Nora Silver. I'm the co-instructor for Social Sector Solutions and the founder of the Center for Social Sector Leadership at Haas School of Business. I'm delighted to see you all. I want to talk about the framing for Social Sector Solutions, which we call S cubed, and the different component parts. And then I want you to hear from two people who were team leads last year. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Mark, would you start us with the slides? Okay, so this is, the first was a picture, if you go back for a minute, of last year's full squad, two of whom you're going to be hearing from today. Okay, let's go to the next one. And what we're here to talk about today is really the critical role in S cubed. There are many moving parts, but it's the team lead that really holds things together. And I'll explain more of the other moving parts in a minute. But for those of you who come from consulting, this is really the engagement manager level role. The person who scopes the project, the person who runs the team, the person who is the front person with the client. It's the engagement manager role, with which most of you probably have not done before. What we're offering you is a chance to really be a leader here. This is an unusual, and I would say outstanding leadership opportunity at Haas, because here you get true autonomy. You lead the team from the beginning to the end. You get to decide who's on the team. You get to scope the project with the client. We've done the initial scoping. You make all decisions as you go. The rest of us are here to help you and to be thought partners with you, but you and your team make the ultimate decision. Each team is assigned its own McKinsey consultant as a coach, and you as a team lead decide how best to use that coach. And maybe we can talk about that more with the former team leads. This is really as close as it gets to an authentic consulting project. Every deliverable for the course really is about the consultation. This is not a course that teaches consulting, and this is a project on the side. The entire course is about how to consult and applying it to your client. Okay, next slide, Mark. All right, so what would you do as a team lead? Again, you have overall responsibility for your team. You help recruit and you help select your team members. I'll talk about who the team members are in a minute. It is a heavy commitment. It is a heavy lift. It's 14 to 20 hours a week for the course, and that varies. That goes up and down depending on how close you are to a midterm or final presentation. And certainly in the beginning, it's the heaviest lifting to understand your client and your team. You're the point person for the project with the coach, with a team, with the clients. You manage, you divide up the work of the question into different work streams for team members in order to meet the goal. And then your job is also to coordinate those different work streams so they go out toward answering the question. You have regular communication with your coach once a week, with your client once a week, with your instructors every Tuesday night during class, and you help the student consultants on your team. And we try to cross team learning as well. And you'll see in the clients for this year, we have some interesting overlapping questions. So there will probably be a little more interaction between teams. In exchange, we support you. We also give you a $1,000 stipend, which is just for you, and $250, which we give to you to use for team expenses. That can be, well, in another time, travel, it can be food, it can be drinks, what you want to do it to you so that you can decide. So let me talk about the course itself. Mark, next. So there's a special section of the course 292N that is for team leads only. But the rest of the information on the slide is about the course overall. So it is a 3-unit course. It's Tuesday evening, 6 to 9:30. If we're in person, it's going to be in the iLab. If not, it's on Zoom. Two other things you should know about, in addition to the class time, we do have a team lead orientation in early December, during which we really prep you for those first deliverables and what to expect. You'll hear from a team lead then also. And we select the teams at that time. So together, all the team leads and the instructors get together and allocate the team members. There's a kickoff and a finale where all the teams, all the coaches, all the clients come together. And on the bottom, you can see what we teach. So the way the course usually looks is the instructors will have about half an hour to 45 minutes of some instruction. Let's take the scoping letter. We'll teach you what a good scoping letter looks like and how to create one, and then you'll work with your team to do it. Same thing with like storyline development. We'll teach you how to do that, and then you'll do it. Okay. We also have team effectiveness. So we have contracts that you have with your team about what they want to learn, what they have to give. And we have some team feedback sessions with professional coaches. And we teach you something about social sector organizations. For those of you who aren't familiar with them, we want you to understand how they're different and how they operate. Next slide, Mark. Okay, so why do we think this is a really high quality experience? And I think it's because the team is at the center of it, but has a lot of support around you. So the teams look like this. There's generally an MBA team lead, which would be you. There are 3 other graduate students, often 1 or 2 other MBAs, a graduate student from another school, sometimes with content knowledge, and an undergraduate student. Generally, that's what they look like. There's room to move, but that's the kind of core that we tend to use. Social sectors clients, which I'm talking to now, they have a project lead and they have a client team as well. Supporting you as the McKinsey coach. We're going out now to see who those coaches are. We've had a number of coaches who repeat, so they know what they're doing, and some former S-Cube team leads who are coaches. Okay, right now we're looking at having 3 co-instructors. Paul Jansen, who was the founder of McKinsey's social sector practice, and I've been teaching with Paul for 13 years. S-Cubed. Joe Doherty, whom I taught with last year in S-Cube when Paul was away for a year, who's a partner at Dahlberg Advisors, and myself. Okay, let's pause for a minute. Any questions so far? Happy to hear them.
I have one quick question, Nora.
Sure.
The 3 units of credit is the same whether or not you're a lead or enrolled. The course number is just different.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have another question. Is
Sure.
the team lead opportunity available only to first-year MBA students, or is it for second years as well?
It can be second years as well, but it's much more rare to do it in your second year because it's your last semester and many people are looking for jobs, but we have had some. Yeah, it's available to either. Anybody else? Okay. Let me go ahead and share with you the clients we know to date. One of the things that's different this year is that bidding, which you really don't know about yet for the first years, is delayed into November. So we have longer time to recruit clients. And I'll say who we're working with to recruit them. But I want to share with you the clients that we have right now. So Berkeley Food Network is coming back to us. 3 years ago in 2018, they were a startup and they started to see a rise in food insecurity in Berkeley among students as well as other residents of the city. And they've been remarkably successful. So they're coming back to us for a growth strategy. And they want a growth strategy that addresses a few challenges. So one is sustainability. They've gotten a few major $300,000 grants. Which is great, but that takes you on a growth trajectory. How can they get to a sustainable, financially sustainable level? How can they develop new income? And importantly, they want to be able to shift to purchase more locally and sustainably produced food and food that is more culturally appropriate. So now they've been using this prepackaged and government issued prepared foods, and they really want to switch to fresh foods. So it's a little bit different in their product. So that's Berkeley Food Network. Change Lawyers. Change Lawyers is an organization that's a spinoff from the California Bar Association, and their focus is on creating the next generation of diverse legal change makers. I talked to them, and 80%, this is shocking to me, I don't know if it will be to you, but in the state of California, 80% of lawyers currently are Caucasian, 80%. Changemakers is trying to get more people from diverse backgrounds into the law so that people who are actually in the legal system get represented by people like them. And their question is twofold. One is, what's the marketing plan? How can they tell a better story of what they're doing and why it matters to have this diversity in representation? They'd like that to lead to increased revenue. Since the 2008 recession, they actually have had a decrease in donations from lawyers, and they're wondering if they can get that back up or broaden contributes to them, and they have an interest in sustainability for them. Okay. Designing Justice, Designing Spaces is a very unusual organization also. What they do is they build these refuge rooms, picture like tiny houses, except they're not freestanding. And they're built with and designed by formerly incarcerated people as a healing place. And many people are being early released from prison because of COVID and overcrowding. And so there's a real demand on building these refuge rooms there from the prison systems, also from the counties, to serve victims of violence. So their question is, how can they get these up and built and distributed and used quickly enough? What's the business model for them? Scout Fund is an impact investor. This is an individual who invests in early stage social impact organizations. She's invested in 3 to date. They are all women-led. And she's wondering she has a couple of different investment mechanisms, how to bring them together in a really strong strategy moving forward. Urban Ed Academy is a 3-year-old organization in San Francisco that recruits African-American men from historically Black colleges and universities to teach in San Francisco elementary schools. The idea here is they want kids to be able to see teachers that look like them. And it's a 4-year fellowship. And what they provide is a path toward credentialing, a job, a path toward credentialing, and housing. And their question is, they've got a very innovative way of looking at the housing. They're looking at, can they furbish distressed homes in Bayview Hunters Point, get debt financing for them as places where their fellows can live while they're doing the fellowship, help the homeowners to restore their homes, and therefore raise the standard of living in Bayview Hunters Point. Okay, so it's really a finance real estate play. They also want to explore, how can they get more involved in policy work in the Black male educator space? And how can they tell the story of what they're doing? They're getting a lot of attention, and they really need to shore up their model. Writer Coach Connection is about urban education. And this is an organization that is looking for a sustainable business model and a growth strategy. They've been very, very successful in the East Bay, Alameda County, Contra Costa County. What they do is they have coaches who go into classrooms and work with a class, not just individuals, but the whole class, to develop critical thinking skills and writing skills. And they're focused on low income and marginalized communities. Okay, so we've got a couple of growth strategies, a couple of a business model, business strategy, feasibility study, and marketing plans. We've got a little diversity here in terms of the kinds of projects. Now, these are the 6 we have to date. We're looking for 4 more. And we're in conversations right now with 2 kind of feeder organizations. One is Kapor Capital, Mitch and Frida Kapor, who support a portfolio of 120 for-profit social enterprises. And they're talking to their enterprises now to see who might be interested in joining us. They tend to be heavy in tech. They're generally small startups. The other group we're talking to is Tipping Point, which is a philanthropy in the Bay Area run by Daniel Lurie, who was actually from Goldman School. And they are an anti-poverty organization that funds, I'm going to guess, about 25 organizations, maybe more, in the Bay Area in housing, education, health. It's anti-poverty play. And so they're talking to their organizations, which are a little further along. They're more developed, they're larger organizations than the Kapor group. And for Tipping Point, they would all be nonprofits. So those are the 2 folks we're working with now to fill those other 4 slots. So let me pause there. Questions about the organizations?
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Yep. So say we're coming from a consulting background, do you typically suggest that we choose a project where we have past experience in that type of work? Say we've done like growth strategies before, or do you suggest we choose something different to stretch, or it doesn't really matter so much?
I think it depends on your long-term goals. If there's one that really speaks to you, you have the consulting shops to take it on. So if there's one that really speaks to you, I would say go for that. As you probably know, and I don't know if your past projects were in social impact or not, but social impact tends to be a little different.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've done other growth strategies, if it's not social impact, you're going to feel a difference there. And as I'm sure you know, each client, one's different from the next.
Yeah.
So even if you've done growth strategies, it's not going to be repetitive for you. So I leave that to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure. Others, anybody else?
I have one, Nora.
Yeah.
I looked up Scout Fund quickly. I'm wondering, I want to make sure I have the right website. I found one that's Scout Investments, an affiliate of Carry On Tower Advisors. Do you know if that's it or if it's something else? And they may not have a website, I realize.
I don't think they have a website.
Okay.
They're an affiliate of, I think it's Piper Angels.
Okay.
Something Angels. So I don't recognize the one you're describing.
Right.
This is somebody who's been very behind the scenes.
Sure.
She's been investing through impact assets,
Okay.
having other assets at Marin Community Foundation.
Oh, okay.
So she's been very much under the radar because she doesn't have a strategy and she's looking to develop.
Very cool. Thank you.
I can tell you it's a person who's living in Berkeley, so nearby.
Nora, I had a quick question.
Uh-huh.
So just from looking at the projects, I'm curious to know in terms of the team lead, are you looking for someone, or is this role really meant for someone who has the consulting background in a way, or maybe they worked in the industry? So for example, I've worked in education. I'm just curious to know how exactly the profile of the team lead fits.
Okay. Our preference is somebody with past consulting experience. And the reason for that is that they know what 15 weeks looks like in terms of managing a project and where you need to be in week 3 and week 8. They know how to create decks and how to organize the work. That said, we've had very successful team leads at times who deeply understood the industry. And so I'm open to that. I think the critical skills outside of knowing the industry or consulting are really strong project management skills and knowing how to, or having some experience leading a team in any form that took. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Okay. Let's bring up Brian. I know you're here. Anna, are you here as well? Let's go back, please. Okay. Do we have Anna here yet?
I emailed her. I don't see her on the participant list.
Okay,
Just
well,
under her
let's
name.
hope she'll join. But right now we have Brian Reed, who was a team lead last year. So Brian, could you kick us off with why you wanted to be a team lead, who you worked with, what you did, and maybe the results, and what you got out of it? Did it meet your expectations? And what was hard, what was easy? And let's start there.
Sure. So why the team lead? What was the result of the project?
What did you do? What was your project? Who was your client?
Okay. And what I got out of it.
Right.
So why I was interested in the team lead role, I think, well, one of my big motivations for coming to Berkeley in general was because of the experiential learning opportunities that were here. So I came in with the mindset that I would be looking for those, just because that's how I felt like I learned the best, and you know, I valued that kind of experience in business school over, say, like committing myself to like academic clubs or like industry clubs or things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with any of that, but for me personally, this felt just more significant. So, and then the team lead role specifically, I think it was an opportunity to challenge myself. Like I came to business school with the goal of really stretching and, you know, trying to like transform myself as a decision maker and a leader. And frankly, like it kind of scared me a little bit, made me nervous, but that was like a signal that, you know, this was going to push me towards the sort of like, you know, the goal that I wanted to achieve in coming to business school to begin with. So there was that. I think there are other team lead opportunities at Haas. I thought this one had a nice advantage just because of the impact and the interaction you get to have with clients and with McKinsey, and like the teaching staff plays a really important role and helpful role in just mentoring you. So there's just lots of mentoring through Nora, through Joe, and through the McKinsey coaches. And I had a great experience with that overall. So that's why the team lead. What I actually ended up doing was I worked with an organization called the Common App, which some of you may have heard of. They're, essentially an ed tech nonprofit that provides a unified college application primarily targeted towards prospective college students who will come from underserved or underrepresented backgrounds. Their current services were targeted towards four-year universities, and they were looking at expanding their services to the community college space. So myself and my 4 team members basically hypothesized 15 different potential opportunities for community colleges. We assessed each one of those. We identified just a couple of those that were particularly ambitious and impactful, but that were still like within Common App's ability to achieve, and then did sort of a deep dive on those 2. The Common App was great to work with. They were very excited with the recommendations we gave them. They actually are, I was just telling Nora at the start of this call, they've raised money to support this. So they've hired people into Common App to run their community college program using all of the work that my team and I put together. So from an impact perspective, I think like looking back, I couldn't have, asked for a more meaningful and challenging, but also just really cool experience to have in business school. And it's not just in the classroom. You're actually working with a real client. I mean, Common App, 1 million kids apply through their application every year, and so it's a real organization, and they were relying on us to help them. So it was a really good outcome from that sense. What I took away from it, I would say, I think just overall, it helped me become a better manager and a better leader. I think there are a lot of skills that kind of go into that bucket, but this really pushed me to a new level, I think, in terms of that. I think it also helped me improve my consulting skills. So if anyone's thinking about going into the industry after business school, which I'm sure some of you are, there are very few opportunities that would be better, if any. So, the opportunity to network with McKinsey is obviously good, but it's just really good hands-on experience. And for me, my internship was with Samsung's Global Strategy Group, which is essentially a consulting function, and it was excellent experience to prepare me for the internship. And now I'm going back full time in the spring or after this year. So it was helpful for that. And otherwise, it just was really cool to feel like you're doing something good. I mean, Common App, I think any organization that comes to S3 is going to be very mission driven, and it's nice to feel like you're doing something. There's a lot in this world to be negative about nowadays, but to actually get in, roll up your sleeves and actually make a difference, I think S3 gives you a really awesome opportunity for that.
Thanks, Brian. One thing I neglected to mention that I should say now is that the clients that are coming to S Cubed are paying clients. Okay, so they have some skin in the game, both in terms of money, but also in terms of time. This is a major, major commitment for them. So questions for, let's see, do we still have Anna here? Okay, questions for Brian. What would you want to know from somebody who just did this last year?
I have a question.
Sure.
Brian, how did you feel that the 14 to 20 hours a week kind of played out over the course of your semester, and what were, I guess, the competing priorities that you had at the time?
Yeah, it's probably the number one thing to be to really question yourself on coming into this. For me, I was able to make it work, and I even had other things going on. I don't know that I would advise that. I think if S3 should be your one extra thing outside of class, I think it's a general rule. Not that you can't do clubs and go to social activities and participate that way, but I wouldn't commit to anything else that's a ton of time outside of S3. If you do that, the 14 to 20 hours, yeah, there are going to be busy weeks, but it's doable. For me, it was just about being really on top of planning and mapping things out and staying, keeping my calendar up to date and holding to the timeline that we've kept to with the project, and relying on my team. So as a team lead, you have the luxury of delegating everything to your teammates, and you should do that as much as possible. So that gives you quite a bit of flexibility, I would say, in terms of shifting those 14 to 20 hours a week around all of your other classes and things like that. So yeah, you got to go in ready for some weeks that are going to be busy, but it is doable. I never pulled an all-nighter. Maybe there was a couple late nights, but overall it was okay.
I want to just piggyback
Well, thank you.
that as a team lead, we encourage you not to take a work stream. Okay, assign out your work streams to your team members. Your job is to coordinate all of this. And anticipating another question, because I see a couple of you are also Berkeley Board Fellows. We routinely have people who do S-Cube, team lead, and board fellows. So that's not the high impact conflict that you would worry about.
So I did board fellows as well, and it was okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question for Brian. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with the client team lead and sort of how that worked, how frequently you communicated, and whether it was a good relationship or whether there were any issues that needed to be worked on?
So I don't know if I just got lucky, but I didn't have any issues with the client with Common App. I can't speak for sure about other teams, but my sense is that these people are, one, super grateful to have you on board and helping them. They are also very dedicated to their mission. And so in general, when you're working in social impact, that usually means you're working with very nice people and people who are easy to get along with. So I think personally, and in terms of the working relationship, they were very open to the ideas we suggested. They were sort of like deferred to us on how we structured the work, as long as we were helping them achieve the objectives that we laid out. So I didn't experience any micromanaging or like them being overly demanding. If anything, we were probably like pushing them a little bit in terms of like what they were comfortable with in the ambitions of the recommendations. But overall, I would say it was quite positive. And I actually think there are, I think a lot of times like these clients are here in the Bay Area, and so that proximity is quite nice. Mine was in DC, and so we would connect on Zoom. But assuming social distancing rules allow for it, you'll be able to like interact with them in person, which can't be undervalued.
Can you speak to the experience of picking your team?
So I don't know if it'll be the same process this year. I assume it'll be pretty similar. But basically, there's a separate application for all the team members. And then it's in the orientation meeting in December. Is that right, Nora? Or is it
Yes.
later?
No, that's right.
Okay, that's when you'll go through like all of the applicants, and there's basically like a negotiation process where you sort of like identify who you would like to have on your team, and you kind of like push and pull with the other the other team leads, and land on your team. My strategy was because it was an education and technology project. We had one guy who had worked at fellow MBA who worked at Deloitte in their education practice, and so I had him on the team. I had another team member who was an MBA as well, but hadn't done consulting before, but he was a former community college student. And so he had like really in-depth knowledge of like what that market was like from the student's perspective. And then we filled out the team with a design student, which was great because we were like thinking about prototypes for different types of services. And then finally an undergrad who was just like super eager and hardworking. And oftentimes the undergrads end up being the most valuable person on the team because they feel the most passionate and are the most eager to do cool things. So so that was kind of the strategy. I think it depends on like what your domain is and who applies. But for the most part, I think if you can get people that have prior consulting experience or have prior experience in the domain, then that's helpful. And yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to friends too, because I think that can be helpful if you're looking to. You can recruit your own team if you want.
Thank you.
I was kind of going to ask that question, actually, Brian. I'm wondering if you can speak to that a touch more. When in terms of recruitment, if you were to connect with people who are applying to the class and are thinking about being in the team, you can sort of co-create that choice where people say also that they want to be on your team, and that can be a piece of the strategy?
Yeah, I believe so. Is that right, Nora?
Yeah, let me answer that.
Thanks, Nora.
Okay, no, you can recruit. Let me take a step back. So MBAs have to bid points to get into the class, right? And if they bid enough points, they will be in. Graduate students and undergrads just have to apply. They're not automatically in, right? Everybody then submits the same application, and the application asks, what do you bring to this? Send us your resume, but what else do you bring to this? What experiences, what knowledge, what skills? What do you want to get out of it? Because people are coming to this for very different reasons, right? And then rank order your top 5 choices. And we endeavor to give people their first or second choice. In rare instances, it's their third. Now, if you go out and recruit your team, please, please, please do not guarantee anyone, that they will be on your team. However, if they put you first and you want them first, I don't think we've ever not done that. But I don't want guaranteeing anyone anything, just in the rare instance that we would have to go outside of their first choice. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you.
But please, if you're a team lead, absolutely recruit and think beyond Haas as well. You will know, one of the things we encourage you to think about is, all right, if your question is, let's say Urban Ed Academy, which, is about recruiting teachers. And I misspoke. It's not just African-Americans, also Latinx and Indigenous teachers, right? Somebody who knows that field, but also the question is about housing and finance. So you want people maybe with education background, maybe somebody from one of those populations who's, had some decision-making to do about career. You would want somebody possibly in real estate. You would want a finance person. So to think about that and to recruit based on what kinds of skills and knowledge you need, and to go to other schools. We go out to other schools. So we don't rely on you to recruit. Let me be really clear about that. You don't have to come with your own team. It's an option for you, but we're out there recruiting as well. Other questions?
I have another one, but I'll wait in case anybody else.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if anybody else does. Go ahead. Doesn't seem like it, Maddie. Go ahead.
My question is just about the team lead matching, also in terms of pairing team leads with the organizations and how that process is navigated based on team lead preferences.
Okay. Mark, would you go to the next slide, please? Thank you for that setup. That was So this is really a one-on-one match. As I said, the critical role really is the team lead. And so what I ask is send me an email as soon as possible. It really will be first come, first serve. I want to set up a time to meet with you. I want to make sure that you know what you're getting into. I want to have that discussion with you about which teams you would like to serve on. Remember, really, the core of this really is a leadership opportunity. At the end of the year, we have a kind of team lead debrief or dinner. And last year, I think to a person, every team lead said they did this for a leadership opportunity. That's what it is. But we really do try to give you one of your top choices of teams. I'm not going to randomly assign you to something that you don't want to do. The more choices you give me, the more likely that you will be a team lead, right? But I do want, this is hard work, and it has to be something that you care about in some way. If you make a commitment, if we agree that this makes sense for you, because one of the other things I want to talk to you about is, what do you want to get out of this? Because it's hard work, and if it doesn't meet your expectations or needs, it's too much to do, and I don't want you doing it. When things get hard, I want you in this for a reason. But if you make a firm commitment between, what we're going to do is we're going to assign you up separately in that separate course. You don't have to sign up. We sign you up. What that means though is you don't know about bid points yet for the first years, but you get 1,000 bid points to put against basically 2 electives in the spring. There are variations on that, but that's kind of about it. And so we're going to take some of those bid points from you if you're a team lead, because you already have one of your 2 electives. Does that make sense? Okay, so it really is, this is a one-on-one match. I'm meeting with you to make sure you're ready to take this on, that you have the skills. I don't want to put anyone in a position that I don't think they can handle. To assign you to a team or to get a sense of which teams you would like to work on. And then to form a group of team leads that's strong. And when we get together in December, what happens is I will gather all of the applicants from all of the teams. I'll make a draft list of what it looks like if we gave people their first choice, or my first cut of what kinds of skills you might want on your team. And then when we get together in December, it's all of our jobs to form the 10 strongest teams. Okay, Mark, you can take that down. Thanks. So I guess what I would say, because we have Brian here and you can, agree or disagree, Brian, but the things I hear afterwards, I created S-Cube 14 years ago. And over time, what I hear from former team leads is some version of, it was the hardest thing I did, the most real, in the sense of real impact in the world, thing I did when I was at Haas, right? And it was really, really demanding. And some version of, generally people really like the clients they work with. If clients are difficult, somebody asked the question of how you got along with your client. If clients are difficult, it tends to be on the side of they're so busy that you really got to get their attention and nail them down to get what you need, right? It's not that they're disengaged. It's that they're really running around busy. So you've got to grab them and you've got to set up regular meetings with them. And one variable maybe you could talk about, Brian, is working with the coach, because we really do leave it up to the team leads to decide how you can best use your coach. Some of you have client management experience, so that's not where you need them. Some of you have done consulting, you don't need in, creating the work streams. It depends on where you want to focus your work with the coach. I will say that some of the team members really want access to your coach. So just understand that. Brian, you want to talk a little bit about your relationship with Claudio?
Yeah. So I think for the most part, coaches end up being like engagement manager level McKinsey consultants. For whatever reason with Common App, I was paired with a partner in McKinsey, which apparently sometimes happens. That was Claudio. And I would say he was very, very helpful. The challenge with the McKinsey coaches, I think sometimes, is that McKinsey is a demanding place to work, and so they're quite busy. That said, what I did is I just set a regular time each week. It was on Fridays in the afternoon. We would meet for, I would say, 30 minutes to an hour every Friday, and I would go into that meeting with like 2 to 4 things that I wanted to talk to him about, that was either like something with the client, something with the team. Sometimes it was related to like the deliverables we were trying to create. Sometimes it was just like more like people management stuff that I would take to him. And it was a super valuable mentor relationship by the end of the semester. And actually we still keep in touch now. Yeah, I think it's definitely what you make of it. I think you'll have to, they are very eager to help, but it's up to to each of you to direct their attention as to what they should help with. And a lot of times they will will they'll help you out of like really difficult situations. They'll give you access to resources, or they just give you a lot of really helpful advice and recommendations for where to go with the project. So I think if you structure it and you go in prepared to every conversation, it's really positive.
Right. If we have anything go wrong with the coaches, I mean, we've had instances in the past where all of a sudden somebody's assigned to 6 months work in China. Okay. So you have the time difference and that's tough. But generally what we hear from the coaches is they're not asked to do as much as they want to do. Okay. So if anything, some of the coaches feel really well used and some of them feel underutilized. So it really is up to the team lead. You can get a lot from these coaches, but you've got to connect with them early on and get them into the project early on. You can't wait till before, week 8, your first deliverable for the midterm is due and they don't know about your client or haven't worked with you. Other questions, concerns you're sitting there with that we talk with you about?
Hey, Nora, I have a quick question. Is there like a directory or list of second years beyond Brian who we can talk to about this team lead role, or should we just reach out to you after?
Can we send that out in some way, Mark? The team leads from last year?
Yeah, let me put that together and we can send that out. And I think I captured most of the attendees, so.
Okay.
I think I saw it actually in the, I saw it earlier today on the website. There's a resource for MBAs, and in there's a spreadsheet that has the teams and then the team leads assigned to them.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Andrea.
Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you for coming. I'll stay around. I'll hang around for a few minutes. Maybe Brian, you could too, in case anybody has individual questions. I hope you'll really consider this. I wish I had had this opportunity in graduate school myself. Again, it's demanding and it's rewarding, and it's a chance to make, kind of as Brian said, in this very, very challenging world and time, to make a difference, a real difference in 5 months. And that's not always available to us. So thank you again for coming, and look forward to hearing from those of you who want to discuss it further or apply. Take good care.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nora, I have a couple more questions, but I think maybe booking the time with you to talk about them is a better
Well,
thing.
let's just see. Whatever you want. I mean, I have the time now. Romit, any more questions?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Maddie go first. Yeah.
No, you go ahead. I've asked more questions. Please go ahead if you have some.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think this one's directed towards Brian. I just wanted to know a little bit about navigating the second semester with this commitment, recruiting. I don't know if you tested out of classes, just any sort of recommendations you have for us as first years who are considering doing this.
It depends what you're recruiting for, and it depends a little bit on how that recruiting goes. So consulting, usually recruiting is done by is over by like end of January for the most part for internships. So if things go well, like you're done with the process and you have the rest of the semester, and it ends up not being much of a conflict at all. And that ended up being my situation. So I found out about my internship in January. So if you end up recruiting later into the spring, it definitely happens. I had like pretty much all of my team was recruiting into the spring, and it all worked out. Like they were able to make the time for it. Usually it's something that you can just handle by like coordinating with your team, I would say, and planning ahead. But yeah, it does depend a little bit on like what you want to go for, because if you're thinking like tech or like startups and that kind of thing, it's going to be later in the semester. Maybe it's like closer to when you're trying to wrap up the project, so you might want to be sensitive to that. But for the most part, I don't think it's a huge barrier.
Thanks.
Okay, Maddie?
Yeah, I have kind of the opposite questions, as I think maybe the only second year who was on the call today. I think I'm very interested. I also know second year looks very different than first year. So I think they're probably, I don't know, sort of more personal questions about my own commitments. And you have those seen second years effectively lead an S3 team?
Rarely, but yes.
Okay. It will depend, I think, then just on priorities. I think too, because I'm looking in the social sector space, this feels directly relevant to my recruitment. And I think what it just probably would end up filling is what would otherwise have been an internship somewhere in the spring. I would end up prioritizing this probably instead and feeling like it was similar in that sense. I will think about all of it and come back with more specific questions.
Okay, and I'm sure some of the other second years, you know, who were team leads last year might have something to say about that too. It's worth talking to them.
Okay, great. Brian, we might have to chat later.
I will say it feels like an internship. I mean, especially if you're in the team lead role, you're working pretty closely with the client. I mean, I was talking to them at least once and often several times a week. And so, I mean, effectively it was, I would say, a part-time internship with Common App, but yeah, for whatever that's worth.
No, that is helpful. I think that's what I'm just evaluating. Should it be an internship or this in the spring? Specifically, two of the projects here sound like exactly the kind of thing I would want to do. The designing justice, designing spaces concept is something I've talked about with other people independently, is something that I think would be interesting. And then, and have just like a focus on criminal justice as an area of interest, and have thought about that transition out of, so I don't know, from a specific, which is why I ask how specific are the projects, and it's nice to know that you really are pairing. And then the Scout Fund too, being something that is also exactly the type of internship I would otherwise be looking for. So to be determined. I'll do some soul searching.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you so much, both
And
of
it
you.
sounds like it's also dependent on the project for you.
I think so.
For people, it's not. For some people, it's really not. I want the leadership opportunity. Any of these four will work for me. Sounds like more specific for you.
I think it'd be more specific.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Okay, I'll hop off. I'll reach out to you later.
Okay.
Thank you.